Since the Golden State Warriors captured their fourth title during the 2021-22 season, and Stephen Curry has won his very first Finals MVP, it has catapulted Curry to high basketball discourse amongst fans and the media. With this, the greatest point guard of all time debate has surfaced between these two guards. Comparing players across eras is a challenging task, as both were brought up under different rules and styles of the game. With that being said, this video will try to illustrate how these players stack up amongst each other. Statistical comparisons will be made, and since the average pace of play of their careers are similar, the comparisons will be sound. To establish a foundation, this is the criteria that will be used in the comparison: their overall offensive and defensive ability, their peak prime and longevity, as well as how they performed in the playoffs. With that being said, let's get into the video. Let's start with offensive ability and with stats. Curry has revolutionized how offense is played in the modern NBA. His combination of deadly three-point shooting and off-ball movement keeps defenses always on high alert, whether he is on or off the ball. As the greatest shooter the league has ever seen, defenses are forced to pick up on him from further out than the average player. His shooting allows him to be in the discussion of the greatest scorers of all time. Curry is not a high-volume shooter. His efficiency isn't in the class of his own, and similar to the likes of Reggie Miller. At only 6'3", he has established himself as one of the greatest below-the-rim finishers the league has seen, joining the likes of Kyrie Irving and Tony Parker. The fear he puts into defenders of his own shot allows him constant opportunities to drive past them when they overcommit. His mixture of speed, agility, and a great ball handle allows him to quickly change direction of attacking the rim and is in the class of his own. The combination of the two has allowed Curry constant opportunities to torture a defense for an entire game, but this tool is not solely used for scoring as well as it is to set up his teammates. We just talked about his scoring ability, but nothing regarding his playmaking. Curry is not a primary passer. His main objective is to put the ball in the basket, and indirectly he provides something of equal or more gravity. Gravity is what Curry provides. In basketball, this phrase is a reference for how a player draws defensive attention. We just mentioned how his gravity gives easier scoring opportunities, but it helps in playmaking. For a non-big, Curry has the best gravity the league has seen. Teams constantly are looking for him on defense, and this leads to easier baskets for his teammates. Plays like this demonstrate his all-time playmaking ability. With Magic, he falls under the umbrella of a point guard by definition, a player who orchestrates the offense and is responsible directly for setting up his teammates with better looks at scoring. Magic was something the league did not see at the time. He was 6'9" and had the gifts of a guard. In the 70s and 80s, the norm of a person of this height was to play a forward position, as they would not have the ability to maintain fast play and usually do not have the skill set that translates to being a point guard. Magic was an exception to this norm. His God-gifted vision of passing and his speed allowed the Lakers to get looks that teams would have dreamt for. On fast breaks, he put immense pressure on the defense. If the defense collapses on his attacks to the basket, you can kick out to neighboring players around the rim or to the perimeter. A trait that is seen most in players like LeBron James and Luka Doncic in today's game. Whether it was on the fast break or in the half-court setting, Magic had a way to get the ball to his teammates. Any pass with any speed and direction, he would get the ball to you. These attributes and his production come with his case of being the greatest playmaker and passer the league has seen to this date. Now for scoring, that was not Magic's specialty, but he was a great scorer, bearing his main responsibility on the Lakers. He was fond of short jumpers and attacking the rim. Shooting was not his specialty either, as he barely attempted the three ball early in his career, but by the 90s, he started to shoot more of them. At times, he was a deadly scorer and took advantage of what was given to him. His most well-known scoring performance came in the 1987 NBA Finals against the Boston Celtics, producing stats of a typical scorer and showing his versatility in an NBA Finals matchup. In comparing both legends' offensive abilities, here are some stuff that are undisputable. First off, scoring goes to Curry. The production difference is self-explanatory, and he can score in many ways that Magic cannot. Shooting, his off-ball movement, and gravity all favor Curry as well. Magic, on the other hand, is the better passer, playmaker, and offensive rebounder. and has the higher intellect. Now, IQ is not measurable, but over analysis is a subjective conclusion I came to. Before crowning the better offensive player, I want to look at two statistics which help crown the better offensive player. Those stats are box creation and offensive load. Both are creations of Ben Taylor of Thinking Basketball. Box creation estimates the number of creations a player creates per 100 possessions, and offensive load attempts to represent the load an individual player carries on the offensive end. When we compare box creation, we see that creation favors Curry at first. Before jumping to conclusions, we need to consider box creation relies on the three-point shot, and past eras did not attempt many threes. When adjusting for the era, Magic's numbers look more like this. Now we see the difference in creation that Magic provided. This graph represents how their creation translates from the regular season to the playoffs. Magic has the upper hand and has most of his productive seasons, which came when he was at his peak and prime in the late 80s and early 90s. Surprisingly, Curry is not that far behind. The fact that Curry is not too behind from a creation standpoint is a testament to his gravity and off-ball ability, which leads to very easy looks like backdoor cuts for his teammates. Curry possesses a combination that very few in NBA history have. Moving on to the offensive load. The numbers are close, but they favor Curry still. Curry throughout his career has been called upon to uplift his team more than what Magic did. The low numbers show and demonstrate the floor-raising ability he has had, especially in the 2022 NBA season. Despite Curry having to run from 2017 to 2019, his load did not drop much, which shows that the team was reliant on Curry despite the greatness of Kevin Durant. To finalize this section, we will look at each team's offensive rating relative to the era and how they translated into the playoffs. The 2017 Warriors and the 1987 Lakers have remarkably similar offensive ratings, and both teams were at the pinnacle of their respective dynasties. Curry's 16 Warriors had the best relative offensive rating in the regular season, but due to Curry being hobbled in the playoffs and missed many games due to his sprained knee he endured in the first round against Houston, it brought the Warriors' offensive rating down for the playoffs drastically. With all being said, Curry gets the edge on offense. Curry consistently has been asked to do more while being a much better scorer and having all-time great playmaking to go with it. This combination alongside the portability Curry has with his shooting puts Curry among the discussion of the greatest offensive player the league has ever seen. On to defense, and I'll keep this very short. From a statistical standpoint, Magic has to beat in everything. When we evaluate defenses, stats are helpful, but the eye test tells us more. To summarize, Steph earlier in his career was a target for opposing offenses. Mismatches were always put on him. Over the years, Curry has developed better defensive traits, and attention where he is not hunted as he once was. Magic you could view as a taller Steph on defense in mismatches was placed on him as well, but for varied reasons. While Magic kept great speed on offense, defensively he was not agile enough, which caused him to be beaten on multiple occasions by faster attackers. The one separating difference is Magic was a more versatile defender. Physically, he was able to guard bigger defenders, which made up for the lack of lateral quickness and agility. Most notably, one of the greatest accomplishments was as a rookie. Johnson started as center in the NBA Finals in Game 6 after Kareem got injured in Game 5. During this game, he subbed in at various positions and guarded multiple players. With that being said, while we commend Curry for improving his defensive ability over the years, the versatility of Magic makes him the better defender. We will move on to comparing their peaks and prime. When we compare statistically, both had great peaks and primes amongst the 10 greatest ever. Reflecting on the conclusions detailed in the offensive and defensive ability sections, the same would apply here, but just amplified. Statistically speaking, Curry at his absolute peak has the upper hand, taking almost every single statistical category into consideration when evaluating these two offensive anchors. The year he had in 2016 was remarkable. As earlier discussed, his numbers dropped in the playoffs due to the ankle sprain. Despite coming back quickly from it, he was able to put up numbers that most of the league are unable to. The playoff dip is noticeable when examining 1 year, but let's stack up their 3-year peaks. This is done to see if there are any irregularities or inconsistencies in the data. Now what is noticeable is that the same pattern is seen in the regular season, but in the playoffs Curry elevates his play. The pattern does not change in comparing a 6-year or a 10-year prime sample. But what we know of Curry as a player offensively coupled with the data shown, it's clear that he has a better peak and prime than Johnson. For Magic, he came into the league a more ready product than Steph. came out blazing and produced for 12 effective seasons. Unfortunately, Magic was then diagnosed with HIV and prematurely retired in his prime. With that in mind, we do not know what his final years would have looked like, knowing that he was second in the league in MVP voting in 1990, and in 91 he led his Lakers to the NBA Finals. We could assume he had a couple of productive seasons left in him, but at the same time, basketball discourse should leave hypotheticals out of it. On the other hand, we look at Steph, and it seems to be the complete opposite. He came into the league not as a force as Magic. He also had a lot of injuries and a history of them. Curry did not emerge until year 5, but after that he took off and he never looked back. As the years go by, his game gracefully ages. His game is not based on athleticism, and his shooting is ageless. Even at age 35, he is still producing at an all-time level. With that in mind, who knows how many more seasons Steph will play? With all that being said about longevity, it's a toss-up. One could go either way, but I will have to side with Curry on this one. Finally, when we examine their playoff production, this will be broken down into 2 main subcategories: translation and resilience. Translation is simply how a player's production translates from the regular season to the playoffs. Resilience is the ability to maintain production against the best defenses. We can investigate translation and see both are great playoff performers and step up when it matters. Steph sees a bit of an increase in scoring production, whereas Magic sees it in his passing and playmaking. Everything else is a wash between the two. When we look at the NBA Finals performances, the same as seen for career, these legends produce at this level. Translation is close and can be argued either way. I lean towards Steph due to his Finals performances being more impressive in my estimation. We can move on to resilience and say the comparison is roughly the same. Both face similar levels of defenses and produce. Once we plot relationships, we get to see a clearer picture. Curry has the upper hand in this department. Magic had some showing of great scoring against great defenses, but there is a noticeable gap shown. With all being said, Curry takes overall playoff performance. Translation between the two is almost a wash, but the slight gap in resilience gives Curry the victory in this category. Now, with all the categories gone through, Curry is the winner of this matchup. I want to remind you all that just because he won more categories does not make him clear of Johnson. The fact is, these players were close in most of the comparisons, and depending on one's perspective and value to certain aspects of the game, the answer will be different for everyone. That is what makes basketball discourse enjoyable. Two people could have different weightage and criteria or what they value in a player. As fans, we can always change our minds and respect each other's opinions. I hope you all enjoyed the video, took some quiet time to gather all the data and produce it. If you could like and share the video, that would be much appreciated. Subscribe if you like the content, and leave your requests in the comment sections for what you would like to see next. My name is Azan, and I'll see you all in the next one.